Every failure has been a teacher and a valuable part of my trading journey and a fundamental to my understanding of everything that I have learned so far as a trader and everything that I want to use going forward. It's absolutely, I agree with that, even on the most painful days. I learn. In this way, Dalio isn't just about the markets. He's also big on personal growth, just like with that last quote, right? In his book, Principles, that I mentioned earlier, he lays out an approach to life and work, and it's all about radical honesty, constant learning, and owning your mistakes. Just a quick pause before we get into this. Trading can be intense, and staying mindful during your session matters so much. That's why I created and am sharing a free 3-part audio experience that's helped me deeply. 1, for starting your day with calm intention. 1, to stay centered while you trade. And 1, to wind down with grace when it's time to stop. These tracks are yours. Just click the link in the description. Hey, welcome back. Here at the Market Mamas podcast, I cover a wide range of topics from the intricacies of day trading to mindset mastery and psychological growth, with the goal of the conversations being next level growth for all of us. My name is Becky, and I'm a US-based futures day trader from the Pacific Northwest. My trading experience includes trading stocks, options, crypto, and futures, with both trading a personal account as well as with prop funding companies. Over time, I found that I most enjoy the fast-paced world of intraday futures trading, so that is my primary day trading focus now. Thank you for joining me on the Market Mamas podcast today. Hey, earlier this year, I started a segment within Market Mamas of episodes geared at learning from legends. There are so many great traders that have made a name and reputation for themselves for all kinds of reasons, not even just the monetary ones. Today, we're going to dive into the fascinating life of Ray Dalio, one of the most legendary traders and thinkers in modern finance. He's not just the guy behind the world's largest hedge fund. He's also someone who completely changed how many people think about money, markets, and decision-making. Ray Dalio was born in 1949 in Queens, New York, in a pretty normal middle-class family. His dad was a jazz musician, and his mom stayed at home. Nothing too flashy growing up, relatively normal for all outside appearances. But here's the twist. By the time he was 12 years old, Ray was already investing in the stock market. His first big move? He bought shares of Northeast Airlines, which ended up tripling in value. I mean, that's not bad for a preteen. Eventually, Ray made his way through Long Island University. Then he earned an MBA from Harvard Business School in the early 70s. What I researched is after a few years of working on Wall Street at that time, including a stint on the floor of the New York Stock Exchange even, he then did something bold. In 1975, Ray started Bridgewater Associates out of a small New York apartment. Goodness, you guys, that seriously reminds me of the proverb, "Fortune favors the bold," and is an argument for truly having faith in yourself and going for it with your dreams as he did. What began as a one-man operation in 1975 slowly grew into the powerhouse that we know today, the largest hedge fund in the world. Now, to understand more about this trailblazer, let's talk about his style with the markets. Dalio is a global macro investor. So that means that he trades based on big picture trends, things like inflation, interest rates, global debt, even geopolitics. To him, the economy is like a giant machine. And if you understand how the parts work together, you can kind of predict how it will move. And so he devoted his life to studying and practicing within this model in real time and with real risk. He constantly, from what I read, was refining and studying and adjusting and like head buried deep in all of this world so he could really understand it, which powerful also, right? With time, attention, persistence of that dedication, he learned really powerful concepts as he built his empire, learning on the job, figuring out what was working, refining constantly. That's how you kind of create and grow a thing, which makes sense. He doesn't just guess where the market is going with his system. He builds models, runs simulations, and studies history, all to understand the cause and effect relationships, such as if interest rates go up, borrowing slows down, and then the economy slows. That kind of thinking made Bridgewater famous and made Dalio a billionaire. Ray also made his name by looking at the big picture. He was a pioneer in global macro investing, and his strategy, like the now famous All Weather Portfolio, as he has termed it and, made the name of, they were all designed to perform well no matter what the economy was doing. He wanted to understand how economies work, not just how to make money off of them, like the whole picture of it. The goal of this all-weather portfolio, it was to create a basket of investments that can perform well in any environment, boom or bust, inflation, deflation, whatever's going on. It would be okay and would grow, which, oh my gosh, it sounds wicked smart. And I had to find out the details when I started digging into this. I'm like, okay, tell me more. Okay, so here's the basic breakdown of his all-weather portfolio. He puts 30% in long-term bonds, 15% in intermediate-term bonds, 40% in stocks of some variety, 7.5% in gold, 7.5% in commodities. So it really is spread out across all of the major money-making opportunities within the markets at different ratios based on the leverage and volatility of those markets. So Dalio, in this way, he believes that the market is driven by four conditions, and he wants to factor in some element that will always be stable to accommodate all of those. And I believe from him, the four conditions are rising economic growth, declining economic growth, or then rising inflation or falling inflation. And so in either of those scenarios, something in his portfolio is going to perform well, and the others can be mitigated in that situation. So each asset class thrives in a different environment, which is why the breakdown exists as it does. Instead of trying to predict the future, what he does is you just prepare for all the scenarios. That's the all-weather mindset. Pretty smart and like so stable. It makes sense. It makes sense how he built an empire after this like big picture understanding and creation of his system. In studying Dalio for this episode, I feel like he's an investor who truly understands diversification as more than just like a fancy buzzword, but instead as a critical strategy for long-term success and stability. He's quoted saying, "Diversifying well is the most important thing you can do to reduce risk without reducing return." So he's figured out how to like dial it in, right? And it is the cornerstone of Dalio's holy grail strategy and a key concept for all investors to really understand and utilize, because he's really publicized a lot of what he does so that we can learn from him and, mimic should we choose to be investors in that way, which is very generous. So let's get into some of my favorite ideas from Dalio then. So Bridgewater, his hedge fund, it wasn't just big, it was different. Dalio built it around some pretty radical ideas, such as radical transparency and radical honesty, which meant that employees were expected to speak their minds and share tough feedback openly. Even if it wasn't pretty, he wanted all of his people to like work together freely and create a more constructive environment in that way. He did it so he could create a culture unlike anything else on Wall Street. And you guys, like, I would have loved that. Like, I just love this emphasis on open conversation and idea sharing without fear or retaliation. Like that sort of like all supportive environment of like, we're on the same team. Like, let's work together and figure out where everyone is at and what makes the most sense and come to an agreement together. I mean, the more minds, like the stronger the outcome could be if everyone agrees to work together in that way, which is, I get it. Like that's so powerful. And I love that he has shared that that was a part of his, business model too. So another reason why I chose him for this episode. Okay. Oh, side note, if you are into these episodes, learning from legends, you're excited to learn more about Ray Dalio, please take a moment and hit like and subscribe. It really does help the podcast, and I'm here for it. So, show me a little love. Okay. Over time, Dalio, he started writing down his life and work philosophies once he realized he was really kind of onto something and getting more advanced in his business world. And so that eventually became the best-selling book, Principles, in 2017. That book and his ones that followed went way beyond finance. They're about how to make better decisions, how to learn from failure, and how to create systems that lead to long-term success. This is why I love learning from legends. They spend years building their systems and refining what works well for maximum output. And then they oftentimes will share that learning that they have used and developed and growth from in a book such as Principles. And that is such great, like paying it forward kind of energy that I find really admirable, wanting to help up everyone else around them to their success as well, Okay, so one thing that sets Dalio apart is how he turns his thinking into systems. He doesn't just trade off of gut feeling. At Bridgewater, they actually take their best investment ideas and convert them into rules, which then get turned into algorithms. So these algorithms, they run day and night, and they scan the markets and make decisions based on the principles that Dalio and his team have developed and tested over decades. And so they constantly are showing up for the work, and then they put it into a system, write it out, see how it works, test it, refine it. Like, it's really a never-ending process that is never perfected, which is another sign of, a really successful trait in business, is that you're never satisfied and you're constantly working and reworking and improving. Dalio was quoted saying, "If you can't write it down as a system or set of principles, you probably don't understand it." What I love about this is that he clearly defines exactly what he needs to see to take a trade or make an investment. And so that adds structure and rules around his approach, which would be really quite protective. It makes sense. The idea is then that your strategy could be so clear, you could hand it to someone else to run. And that even is an algorithm in certain circumstances. He just programs it automatically to execute. I don't know that he does that. I think that he does that. But these principles could become, automated by a person or a computer even. And this was decades ago that he started operating his system this way. And so he really was quite a pioneer in this industry. I also read a quote from Dalio in which he says, "In trading, you have to be defensive and aggressive at the same time." If this isn't so true, balance is key in trading, protecting your downside, but then also don't be afraid to seize opportunity when the odds are in your favor. That's such a beautiful way to describe a successful trading system, is working both sides of that. Okay, now this is my favorite and a definite Dalio master quote. It's in every single thing you can find about him. This quote is one of the ones that's everywhere. So he says, "Pain plus reflection equals progress." This is one of Dalio's most famous principles for a reason. Losses and failures aren't setbacks, they're feedback. And I feel this way 100% about my trading experience and system and approach as well. Every failure has been a teacher and a valuable part of my trading journey, and a fundamental to my understanding of everything that I have learned so far as a trader and everything that I want to use going forward. It's absolutely, I agree with that, even on the most painful days. I learn. In this way, Dalio isn't just about the markets. He's also big on personal growth, just like with that last quote, right? In his book, Principles, that I mentioned earlier, he lays out an approach to life and work, and it's all about radical honesty, constant learning, and owning your mistakes, right? You see the trend coming? So in other words, when you screw up, and you will, I have, we do. Trading is full of, hindsight choices that we might have done differently, right? But if you do screw up, don't hide from it. Study it, understand why it happened, ask someone about it, dig into it, journal about it, see what you could have done differently, back test it, and trade it in a different way and see how that feels. In that way, you can turn that pain into a principle so that hopefully you don't repeat it so much. Pull the value out of every loss and lesson learned if you really want to succeed in this world long term. It's such a more powerful approach to all of it. At Bridgewater, that's part of the culture that Dalio led. That radical transparency, it included thoughtful disagreement, constant evolution, working together. By checking each other in a respectful but realistic way, that would lead to more effective systems and executions for him. It's so much smarter than any kind of ass-kissing type of culture like that. That doesn't work nearly as well, I can imagine, as a really actually cooperative, open, honest culture. So I really appreciate that that's a big part of who he is and how he has built such a successful business. Okay, you guys, this next quote I found from Dalio is a major reason why I needed him in my Learning from Legends series. He said, "If you're not failing, you're not pushing your limits. And if you're not pushing your limits, you are not maximizing your potential." Playing it safe just will never get you anything all that impressive. It just won't. Sure, you don't risk major injury or loss when you play on the safer side, but you also don't risk the best wins either, right? Trading requires courage and experimentation to really make the high stakes money that we all kind of dream of when we start this. You have to be courageous though. Playing it too safe and you won't grow. Of course, leveraging up in the trading world needs to be done intentionally after time when your system and your psychology is sound enough to take the higher leverage. But never leveraging up is also doing yourself a disservice as a growing trader, I think. I mean, pushing yourselves a little bit more every month, every year, that's where you can really kind of break out and get those bigger outsized returns that you can build up to. Okay, so we can't talk about Dalio without touching more on risk. He apparently is obsessed with that. In fact, he reportedly believes that most investors are exposed to way more risk than they realize. In a related quote, Dalio has said, "Almost nothing can be accurately predicted, but you can prepare for almost everything." In this way, Dalio emphasizes risk management over forecasting, and that's what keeps trader in the game long term. By always protecting their accounts in a balanced and tried and trusted manner and trading a system rather than a prediction. I mean, that's such a damn good point, right? Okay, so then in that edge, that energy, what is his advice for investors? I found this from him. Don't try to time the market. Instead, build a portfolio that can withstand multiple outcomes. Always stress test your assumptions. And if you're going to use leverage, do it only when you've got real diversification to protect it. It all comes back to the same idea. You don't need to be right. You just need to be prepared. And a funny statement on this note from Ray Dalio is that he who lives by the crystal ball will eat shattered glass. I mean, it's vivid imagery for the risk of predictions without enough facts and data factored into your decision. It's a warning against trying to predict the markets too precisely, and that we all would be better served to focus on preparation and not prediction so we don't eat that shattered glass. Getting into a little more tidbits from the wisdom of the legendary Ray Dalio, I read that he also has said, "The more you think you know, the more closed-minded you'll be." It's a solid point that emphasizes how great traders stay curious and open without being wrong. The long-term traders are indeed nearly always consistent with keeping their losers small and letting their runners run and exiting trades based on data, not fear. So great traders are flexible to absorb the data the market is offering and utilize that information in their systems to make educated choices with their trade management. It's like that staying open-minded and not closed-minded. You want to take in all of the data that the market wants to give you and then make the best choices with what's currently happening instead of just staying hooked and married to a plan that you really were sure was going to happen if there's data that's presenting that is telling you that's not happening, which is really an important thing to always be present with as a trader or investor. I mean, it's really just a killer point that you want to stay curious instead of anxious. I love that energy too. Okay, so what about overconfidence? Dalio has thoughts on that as well. He said, if you're not worried, you need to worry. And if you're worried, you don't need to worry. Now, this is apparently a very Dalio-style paradox. Being alert, aware, and attentive, it keeps you safe. Overconfidence and cockiness invites unnecessary risk and can be honestly just plain sloppy. I truly believe that as a day trader, trading is my business, and I need to treat it with respect and professionalism. So then every trade needs to matter, be it from within my studied and intentional system and managed with careful risk parameters every time. That is how I can save my accounts and my risk and my capital and allow it to compound, right? Being careful and intentional every single time I enter a trade. That's my goal. I'm not perfect by any means, but I get it. I get why that is a sustainable system for having a successful trading business. It transforms trading from gambling into a true business when you can do that. After decades at the helm of Bridgewater, Ray officially stepped down from leadership in 2022, though he still shares his views on global economics and geopolitics all the time. These days, he's focused on philanthropy, education, and helping people understand the cycles that shape our world. And to that, if you follow him on any platforms, he still sends out wisdom regularly for us to learn and appreciate, which I love. Recently on his Instagram page, as an example, there was a post that read, "Principle of the day. By comparing your outcomes with your goals, you can determine how to modify your machine." You guys, this makes so much sense for how to constantly, consistently assess your effectiveness and search for growth potential for even greater success. It's such a good point. Thank you, Mr. Dalio, for your continued wisdom, even on social media. So, whether you know him as the billionaire investor, a philosopher CEO, a solid financial industry author, or the guy with those deep economic charts on LinkedIn, Ray Dalio's story is one of curiosity, discipline, transparency, and constant learning from mistakes, which are such a great example for us all. That's what makes him a true legend in the world of finance. But before I let you go, for those of you who have made it to the end of this video, I saved one more Ray Dalio quote for last. It reads, "Don't bet on what you hope will happen, bet on what you understand." This message at its core is a serious hack to trading success, you guys. Do not try to get lucky with the markets. Work to get good, and then execute on your best setups that you have cultivated, studied, and understand. And that is the key to a long-term successful system for extracting money from this market. It's not foolproof, nothing ever is, but by working to understand it as best you can and constantly staying open-minded and learning, I truly believe that's the backbone of what he has done. And that is how you and we can create our own very successful systems that just get better and better over time, which is certainly my plan. All right. That is it for today's deep dive into the mind and life of legendary investor Ray Dalio. I hope and pray that I did it justice. And if anyone wants any more to know about this man, there is information everywhere that you can kind of dig into as well. And the reason why I created this series at Market Mamas is because we have so much we can learn from these traders who have discovered so many key elements to their success over time. And then when they get farther along in their careers, I find that many of them do want to share and teach. And so like this with Ray Dalio, there was a lot of really good gems that I appreciated. So anyway, thank you for being here. If you enjoyed this episode and learning from legends, please do hit that like and subscribe button and share it with a fellow trader that might also enjoy these little tidbits. And if there's a legendary trader that you would like me to feature next, please drop the name in the comments. I'd love to get feedback and tips from you all. It really helps me have even better ideas for the podcast. Okay, until next time, stay curious, stay diversified, and remember, this life is what we get to make of it. Take care.